Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the world you're in. I'm Kevin Koym. I want to welcome you back to the VO Weekly, the Venture Outfitter Weekly. This is a program by Tech Ranch where we work with entrepreneurs around the world, and I'm real excited. In the pre-audience time that we got to spend, we have a number of countries represented. We're going to go through and have a community conversation today. The whole idea about the Venture Outfitter is helping entrepreneurs to go through the processes of building their organizations quickly by leveraging off the community. We're going to talk about that more in depth because I realized a few days ago that we hadn't really talked through this concept that's been so fundamental to the decades of Tech Ranch being around. So I want to bring. It's almost like we're bringing it back. Thank you to DuoWorks. If you're looking for anything from a mailbox to a place to have a meeting while you're in Austin, all the way up to a closed door office with beautiful windows, talk to us to get in connection with the people at DuoWorks. Yeah, I obviously should have drank some water, not just coffee, right before I got on. The main thing, Linda Blackman and her team really take care of entrepreneurs well. They have everything from co-working, but some of you even just need like a physical point of presence into Austin for your businesses because you're international. Talk to us about that and we can get you in contact with them. The one big thing I want to make sure that we're going to have a little bit over the next 4 weeks, we're going to have a big drive towards is to join the community. If you hear this message anywhere in the world and you're an entrepreneur, it's the one requirement that you're an entrepreneur or that you're in the process of starting something, or maybe you're actually restarting something, or maybe you're already like $10 million of recurring revenue into the whole process. I want to invite you to be a part of our community, and there's no charge for the community level of what we do. The whole idea about this, we're going to talk in depth about the concept, but if you're not already in the community, by the end of the session today, I want to make sure that you see the value of how you can tear into it, leverage it. Now, we have other programs that we'll tell you about at another time. I will hint at that we have some new things happening with our Pioneer program, which is specifically what we call our U.S. market entry program, although it has been used to go into markets in other countries as well. The Tech Ranch, I physically live in Austin, but the Tech Ranch team is spread over several different cities. And with our country manager program, we're extending that out even farther. We'll be talking about that in the coming future, but there will be some new introductions. Monica Berettas and Kevin Smith on our team are working on some new elements of the Pioneer program. We've run this program several times in the past. We've now updated it in the post-COVID world to have somewhat virtual and somewhat in person, depending on what you need. More about that soon. But back to the thing I said on the previous slide, get involved in the community for free. And I'll tell you where to get involved in it and why it matters and stuff like that. So the first thing to recognize is it looks like we might be entering into a bear market. We might be entering into this bear market. Financial capital is about to be scarce, or it's already seeming like that's already happened. And it's times like this when we see these. This is actually a report from earlier today, right? And it was normalized, back to numbers at the end of last year. But the truth is that some interesting things are happening, and in this case, interesting might not be good. When you have financial capital problems, social capital is your friend. What is social capital? Social capital is what you do with your community. In social capital, even if all you have in your resources is, you don't have anything in your hand here, right? There's no money here. Social capital is still something you can build. And we talk a lot about this, especially in the programs that I've run in the past called the Campfire here in Austin and around the world. But the main thing to do is, and this is the reason to get involved in the community even more, is that social capital still works even when financial capital is scarce. What is social capital? I'm going to give you a personal example. Yesterday, I had a freak out. Now, for those of you all that know me, I feel perfectly comfortable speaking in front of 400 people. But if I have to sit behind a computer too long, like I can write beautifully. I write beautifully. 45 minutes to an hour and everything's fine. But when I have to work on a proposal, and yesterday I probably sat still for 4 hours working on a proposal that's going on. We're, like TechRanch is increasingly doing these larger proposals for larger international bridges and stuff like that. And right now I'm having to write a good portion of it. Drove me crazy. That's what this part of the Facebook post, and it's open. If you want to see it, you can look at the post on Facebook. But three and a 45 minutes into that 4 hour spot, I realized that I wasn't eating my own dog food. What do I mean by that? I was having a crisis on just trying to get through this whole process, and I said, screw it, and I, called out to my lifeline, that is my community, and I said, I need help. And what I need help on is I shouldn't be doing this type of writing. I shouldn't be doing this type of writing. And the thing that I wanted you to see is I got, I don't know, like an insane number of replies from people in my community. Now, this is on Facebook. And you can do this both on Facebook as well as inside the TechRanch community. But the main thing about this is evidence of social capital. There's a need that, I expressed, based on I need help on this writing. And then I got all these responses. And the best part about this is some of the people are actually saying, hey, I do this for money. This is what I do. Some of them said, hey, Kevin, there's one guy in particular that I spent some time talking to last night, who actually said, hey, I've been watching what you've been doing for a while, and I'd like to plug in. And this is exactly what he does, right? He's writing. He also does a lot of work in innovation and stuff like that. We'll have him come speak at some point. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the community provided. If we're entering into a period of time where financial capital is scarce, and for startups anyway, even in good times, a lot of times startups and entrepreneurs have scarce capital. This is where you should be calling out for your lifeline. Your lifeline's your community. I want to make sure that you do that. If you're not Facebook friends with me, you can certainly do that. So we do this back and forth on Facebook. But also, more importantly, for the community, in the Slack channels, we have a channel called #request. And you'll notice that there's a number of different, if you go in there, you'll see different people are posting about different things. I posted something a while back. Yesterday, I was so freaked out after sitting for 4 hours that I went ahead and I was like, I've got to post this out on Facebook. Help me. Because for those of y'all that, if you take a kid that's probably ADHD and you force him to sit, and after 30 years of Japanese martial arts, I have extreme discipline. It doesn't mean that I can't sit, but it's not necessarily the best way that I use my energy. The previous page really made sense, but then it made me remember to say, hey, we're entering into this financial capital dearth time. Why don't we actually really make sure that everyone has access and knows that they have access to the community, and that we start really digging in on this idea of making a request. And why do I use the word request? I'm not saying an ask, I'm not saying a command, I'm not saying a demand, I'm saying request. There's something about request. There's a whole commitment model that at some point I'll go over. I'm not going to go over it today, but the main thing is two peers can make a request of each other. If you say the word command or demand, it kind of implies that there's a power imbalance. If you say ask sometimes sounds a little passive. And so I use the word request in the way. And the main thing I want you to know is you have a community here that you can make requests to. Now, the nice thing about this is for entrepreneurs that are in have limited resources, this is exactly what we should be doing even more of than we've been doing. Like, we haven't been doing it as much. I kind of forgot to do this a lot in COVID because a lot of us just kind of went into our little COVID bunkers and didn't come out. And we kind of said, hey, we'll come back at some point. But if you're not making a request, and especially for the people that are in the studio audience, I want to make sure that y'all make a request. But even for the larger community of people that hear us, the only requirement that we ask for being in the Tech Ranch community is that you're an entrepreneur and you're committed to having, committed to building a world of shared prosperity. At some point, we might have some other rules, like, just to be clear, this is not a place to dump your feelings. This is a place to make requests. If you're having a hard time and you want to get a request around that, you can say, hey, I'm having a shitty time right now. Here's my request. That's okay. But it's not a place to complain about politics and things like that. It's a place to take action. One of the things that I learned about dealing with depression early in my life as an entrepreneur was one of the most important things that they say that you can do when you're feeling that, closing in feeling of being depressed because something happened, or maybe you have, you're predisposed to that, is this idea that, take action. And one of the simplest, free ways of taking action is to make a request to your peers. If I have anyone that's here that actually has questions about this, I want to make sure that we talk about that. Because today is a community conversation, and it says ask me anything, but let's be clear. One of the things that I learned in the Aikido school that I practiced in for 25 years was a lot of times the guy at the front of the room, the person who might be called sensei or something like that, right? It doesn't really matter what the title is. The guy at the front of the room is not necessarily who you're going to learn from. One of the beautiful things about Aikido is about, resolving conflict without having to resort to violence. And so there's a certain community element. I'll talk about that in the future as well. But the thing I want to say in reaction to the words ask me anything, this is everyone saying ask me anything. I just happen to be the ringleader who stands in front of the ring to point, because a lot of times, we have the Czech Republic, we have Japan, we have Hungary, we have Mexico, we have Egypt, we have Washington State, we have North Texas represented, we have Nigeria represented in our studio audience alone. The main thing about it is we have this beautiful heterogeneous group of people that have insight from around the world. One of my advisors says it this way. He says, solving local problems with global insight. One of the great things about what we have is we have global insight, even with a small number of people represented in the studio audience and the larger, like the 300 or so that are represented in that request channel. And we should start presencing that more. I'll talk more about the rules of making a request at some point in the future, and I'll certainly pin a specific overview about that. But I want to make sure that y'all get a chance to do that, because that's what we're here for today. So I don't have any more slides other than the ones I'm going to use for closing. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the slides. And we started, there were a handful of people that said, hey, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that, a while ago. I want to make sure that we go ahead and do this. You know how it kind of works with me. I'd like to call on y'all. I mean, who wants to go first? Who would like to actually make a request or just give an update about what's happening in their venture? Anybody particularly moved to do that just yet? David Nichols, our Texan in the Czech Republic, please give your quick elevator pitch and then make a request.
Okay, so the elevator pitch is basically that. So we have a solution. We provide an automation platform to connect conversational AI platforms with enterprise data and processes to scale AI to the enterprise and make conversations actionable. So
beautiful.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks. It's an ESB, Enterprise Service Bus. So we have a very different kind of plan because it's a saturated market. We can't get traction like trying to go to end customers and sell our platform to end customers. So we're trying to sell our platform to conversational AI providers, also analytical AI providers, to enable them to easily access data and drive process automation. So this kind of approach, I wonder if there's any template for it. It's like, for example, I believe in it, right? So now I'm investing marketing. We're going to AI Summit in London next month. We're spending a lot on marketing activities. We're doing this podcast thing that we're producing with an expert interviewer in the States is interviewing AI partners of ours to position them as thought leaders, and we, benefit by association. And I'm just wondering, basically, how, if anybody has an idea of seen this done before, to launch a business like this and to take it to the next level. Thanks.
Any feedback from anybody? Well, make sure, let's see, I think that you posted something into the request, but I noticed that the request was just kind of an update, but there wasn't like a specific, I'm looking for this type of customer. I'm referring to what's happening in the Slack channel. Do you know what I mean from that standpoint of like the request?
Yes. Yeah, it was
What's
it's related. Yeah. The question
it was
now is
related.
a little bit more broad.
Yeah, about who to actually possibly engage with, who might actually leverage your tools, who should you talk to, that kind of request. Is that kind of the sense?
Is this a known way? Has anybody known of a business that somebody taking a similar approach? Are we am I trying to do something crazy? Is this doable? Has somebody done it before, and if so, how?
Hey, can you restate it again, just so I hear it in a different way?
I will try. So we have a software platform, and instead of trying to sell to other end customers, like enterprise B2B customers, what we're looking for is actually to partner with other software platforms in different markets, right? And enable them to access data easier and to drive process automation. So to provide advanced no-code IT integration and automation capabilities into other platforms, right? So instead of selling to an end customer, to build through tech partnerships, basically.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I guess my take would be, one, have you seen or identified any other use cases similar where like a tech function or solution paired with another tech function or solution, and kind of in that instance, how was it adopted by the consumer, and can that be a model? Versus, is there a conflict or a potential kind of competitive nature in the B2B of the tech companies and software companies that would potentially raise more challenge for you than just going direct to consumer?
Well, we're not at all going to consumers. That's the whole plan, right? We were never, the original, let's say, business plan was to try to sell to enterprises. Right, it's an enterprise software service bus. So it's like a integration platform for large customers to implement solutions like for data integration and process orchestration, API management, that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So what we're looking at now, there's just like it doesn't work, because it's already the market is already saturated. It's dominated by global players, and the enterprise customers that want to buy it, it's super like business mission critical, and so. Remember Scott McNealy saying nobody ever got fired for buying IBM? It's exactly like that for us, that nobody ever got fired for buying a much more expensive, less capable product from a big name because of the perceived risk to the business, right? Nobody wants to put their $10 billion business on top of a software from a small company that might go out of business in a year or two, where they can't get support, and they've got to, they invest 8 figures in the integration stuff normally. So we're not trying to, we've done decent business until now, but it's not scaling, right? It doesn't go, and we're not getting new customers. So the idea is, okay, we're trying to find other like AI, and especially as a growing market. And we have special also technology or technological support for AI stacks, where we have very tight integration with the AI tech stack and enterprise tech stacks. So what we're saying, okay, if you're an AI provider, let's say conversational AI, you have great technology to have a natural conversation, but in order for it to really work in an enterprise, you need to access data, and you need to drive process automation. And that gives you a complete solution. So we have working partnerships now where we're making revenue there. So I know it's a good idea. The pitch is well received by everybody I talk to. but I haven't like scaled it yet. And so,
Yeah.
So let me throw out a way that a metaphor or an analog that I when I hear what your pitch and that I'm looking at possibly the thing that I think would be interesting to look towards is you know how Salesforce.com grew, right? Have you ever seen how Salesforce.com grew?
no.
The it's interesting. Let's see if I can actually coordinate my screen so I can see your face. Um, Salesforce.com built an application, right? They did software as a service for CRM. They made that whole disruption. It created a key thing. But the thing, and a lot of times, the other vendors that were going up against Salesforce, part of what they did was they said, hey, wait, Salesforce doesn't have all the platform capabilities of the original client server technology. You know, before there was software as a service, it's all client server. The thing that's interesting about that, what Salesforce did was they started building this really rich ecosystem of third parties around them. When they started building this rich ecosystem of third parties around them, now you can configure Salesforce in all these different ways because part of it's coming from Salesforce and part of it's coming from a third party. To your point earlier about the guarantee, about having the vendor, don't try to be Salesforce. Look for the developer ecosystem around one of these other AI companies. I don't know the AI companies well enough to suggest, but the thing that I would look for is the emerging ecosystem that is leveraging third parties more. Now, the really wild thing about that is some of the biggest acquisitions have actually been by Salesforce.com, right? I think Slack was one of their acquisitions in the multiple billions of dollars. I don't remember exactly. I just remember kind of a sense. But even if you had like the $100 million acquisition or even $30 million, I don't know what the number is that you're aiming for. I'm not sure what the company strategy
Any
is.
of those numbers would be great.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing to look for is one of those emerging AI companies that's way far ahead is looking for a way of beating out its competitors. And instead of trying to compete with them directly, find the ecosystem. Because I think in our pre-interview on your company, you said that this is what you guys do. Y'all connect to data sources that other people just have a hard time with, right? I think you've said some stuff about that. You might even, just so you get a little bit more exposure uh, across the network. What's unique about what y'all do versus other people?
Well, as far as I know, we're the only enterprise service bus that actually has the specific goal, technically and business goal to unify AI and data science tech stacks and enterprise tech stacks. So
Got it.
we are specifically focused on that.
Yeah, and that's that type of glue or that type of piping or whatever is going to be very effective in one of those ecosystems.
Yeah.
I think the thing that you're seeing is it's in the years around Salesforce.com compared to the years around AI, like one of the AI platforms. The year is like 2004, 2005, right? Salesforce has just really gotten rolling. It's really just started rolling out its community developer ecosystem. Look for that. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that because that's a great example of, there isn't just general business strategy, and it doesn't have to be specific to hardware or software or technology, joining hands and joining forces, right, to conquer the market. And there's different methods that's happened in, and that's a great example of one where you join a big force in the market that's trying to consolidate lots of little functions around it and build with that, and you become an acquisition target potentially for them. Or it's a lot of other players that each complement each other to create a big solution or a holistic solution, right? So, just another way maybe to think about it is your traditional enterprise target customer, who else is dealing with them and what are they lacking, and can you fill in gaps with them and then join forces with them and take that approach, from the big to the small, depending again on, the market that you're in.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Well, go experiment with that. Now, the other thing I'd actually suggest we don't have a specific channel set up for AI in the channels online. But one of the things that I would actually make a request to is find out who's in the middle of the AI space in the community. We have a number of AI driven, both core AI as well as other stuff. Kim Johnson has a response as well. Kim, go right ahead.
So, little a perspective here. You're right. There's large data consulting companies. I'm thinking of a guy I met. There's a company in Seattle. Well, their office in Seattle is called Databricks, right? They're approaching. They're a mega consultant. So that's kind of your problem, right? You know, you get people that are doing the consolidation just on data warehousing and just the general type stuff. The two things I would say is there's a venture capital firm in Austin. I think it's called just in terms of I saw them referenced in a item yesterday. Go look at the portfolio of, I think it's called Elsewhere Partners. Go look. They have a lot of enterprise software activity. Just go look through their companies and see what their model has been. They've had a couple of exits recently. One of them got sold to PlanView. PlanView is another Austin company that has kind of a structure of, you know, we're going to pull all this data together. So, and then finally there's like a company that I work with here in Spokane. Is a very small startup with just a couple of guys trying to do consulting on the part of AI that you don't do. You remember that one time I asked you, do you do the actual, you know, AI bots, right?
Yeah.
Well, they do that stuff, right? And they're trying to pitch to EY about, we'll help you on projects. If you guys could align and be a bigger look, you know, puff yourself up and look bigger. It's also scouring other entrepreneurs and AI folks that are small, because there are a lot of people in healthcare that are trying to apply AI. If you follow another guy on LinkedIn called Euban Park, he's an ex-Austin guy, and he just talks about AI in healthcare all the time. Just, you know, healthcare is the area I sort of know, and it's tremendously complex, but there's all kinds of barriers, right? Because of the data isn't shared. So three things is, look at some other portfolio competition. If you want to focus on healthcare, I'll share what I can because it's a difficult market, or give you somebody to follow. And thirdly, if you want to talk to the guys making the bots that need somebody to connect to, that could be a way to test out your strategy, because they're in the US, you're over there. If you can, you know, bridge the gap and try to be as Kevin likes to say, a bigger fish, that would be a strategic options. That's my 2 cents, and I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks for the insight, Kim. And then Omar had a couple of different things. I'll just read from the chat. He said, that's a great strategy, Kim. VCs are a great resource to find targets for cutting edge and hungry partners or customers. So thanks. So let's, thanks, David, for the input. Go ahead and start lining up the request. I'm going to get, I'll be getting more people onto the request channel. Let's make sure about that. Our resident Marine has to jump. Melvin Hall just had to take off. Oh, well, I was going to wave at him before he did. Hey, so we have a visitor from Japan, a PhD from Japan. His name is Akihiro. I'm going to screw up. Akihiro-san. He's an intern at the Global Innovation Lab and just recently interviewed me. But he's also from Aichi Prefecture, which is the part of Japan where Toyota is originally from. Akihiro, if you don't mind, come off of mute and just tell us a little bit about what you're working on in your part of the world and anything you'd like to share.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm Akihiro Mori. I belong to Aichi Prefectural Government. It's one of the local government in Japan, located in the middle of the Japanese islands. As Kevin shared, our region have a very strong manufacturing industry. But we are now very worried about the future of our industry. Because if Tesla make electric cars, they don't need engine parts anymore. But our region's SMEs are making many engines. So we are now very focused on the role of the startups making in new industry. Uh, our our governor really focused on startups, and I'm dispatched here to run the startup ecosystem here. So this region have very excellent ecosystem. So I'm running the startup ecosystem here, interviewing many important person like Kevin.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here on the VO Weekly. Is there anything that you would like to make a request of the community? Anything that you'd like to say or ask for in connecting your region of the world into the network?
Now I want to hope is I hope I join this group, and I really want to know how you are communicating. It will be very impressive for me. And if uh, if I really appreciate it if you some of you will give your important time to interview what you are doing.
That sounds good. I would love to. So, other community members, if you're open to, especially in our studio audience, if you're open to sharing your email address with Akihiro, that would be great. It's interesting the transitions that are happening as he was mentioning. As he was mentioning, this whole idea about many different parts of the world are going through this transition. We see this in the northern part of Mexico as well, right? It's like we're about to come to the end of the internal combustion engine. GM has announced that by 2035, as an example, they're going to not be making engines anymore. They're only going to be making electric vehicles. Same thing about Toyota. I don't know when Toyota's made an announcement, but I know that the future is looking like that. That because of battery technology, because of the desire to get away from fossil fuels, there's this big switchover. But it's quite a disruption, right? To go from a car that has thousands of parts, or perhaps 150 parts in the drivetrain, to one that has 3 parts in the drivetrain. Just the amount of transition and stuff like that. It's a very interesting question. We're seeing it across Mexico because Mexico makes lots of cars. Obviously, Japan makes lots of cars. United States, lots of cars. It's interesting. Even in the period of time over the last few years, Mexico displaced Germany for the number of cars, but now we're at this big inflection point that's about to change. Akihiro, sorry that I mispronounced your name. Is there a best way for them to get a hold of you, or any way that you'd like to have individuals follow up with you?
I'm sorry. Could you say again? I'm sorry.
Is there? Would you like to? Well, I can give. I have your card right here. I can give. I can share your email address if anyone wants. Is that the best way to
Yes.
follow up with you?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Cool. What we'll do is we'll make it a point to that if you have ideas, or if you'd like to be interviewed, especially because one of the things that I think is unique about our network is we're not just Austin. We're tying into Monterrey, Mexico, and let's see, we've got Lagos, Nigeria, we've got Guadalajara, Mexico, we've got Prague, we've got Cairo represented, Kim's and somewhere in Washington State. And then a couple of y'all, several of y'all, I don't even know. I'm like, I don't know where we're at. Oh, Budapest, Hungary is represented in the house. So one of the things that, let's see, on the chat, by the way, Akihiro, I just want to make sure you see that several people are sharing their email addresses, so you can follow up with them directly. Like Kim Johnson works between Washington State and Austin for his ventures, so that would be great. So thank you for being here, and I really look forward to working with you on connecting Aichi Prefecture and then more generally Japan into the network. I've always been a fan of Japan. I've only been in an airport there. The reason I've been a fan of Japan is I am a product of 30 years of Japanese martial arts. And, a lot of times the mental model, the pedagogical model of what we're doing is influenced strongly by 25 years of practicing Aikido, which is a Japanese martial art that I'm big. Well, to say I'm a fan is the wrong word because it doesn't say I have scars from it. I have scars from it, and it's taught me so much. So, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Cool. So I noticed that that we have a strong healthcare. Let's see. I see at least one, two, three, four, five healthcare entrepreneurs in the core audience. Let's switch to them. Celia, I told you in the very beginning, before we started publishing, that I wanted to ask you, hey, give us your elevator pitch, and then give us an update about what's happening with your pitch. I know you had some questions, so if you want to ask them first, you can. But go right ahead, however you like to do it.
Oh,
Either give us your pitch or ask the questions you started that I kind of stepped back and said, hey, I want to do that on the program.
yeah. Thank you very much, Kevin, for the opportunity. And I'm the type of person who would write the proposals for a longer time, sitting down in, focusing, listening to Vivaldi and write the proposal, than to give answer to your question in front of so many people. But I try my best. So I had an hour with Omar, which I really appreciated. It was very, very useful. So, Omar, if you know now more about My Click Doctor than before, so I will try to do my pitch. When last week I did it, I was confused, Kevin, because I started with a general introduction, which is that healthcare and medicine become very, very specific, and the general medical knowledge is not enough anymore. Cardiologists are not cardiologists. 30 years ago, we were talking about internists. Now we talk about cardiologists, and within the cardiologist, now you have specialists for lipid diseases, which is, the high cholesterol, and you have specialists for heart failures. So my pitch was saying that, would you like your doctor to have access to free consultation for your medical treatment? And then the solution which Medical Scan offers is a medical matchmaking. So your a medical specialist, your healthcare professional can have free access to consultation, and it is paid by the pharmaceutical industry because they are keen to support this type of discussion among doctors in return to the educational opportunities. So this is my pitch, but I got confused by your feedback, so I don't know whether it's good or not. How would you recommend? And I'm interested in Omar's opinion also, because he now knows more about what we offer.
Wait, so one of the things as well, I had given some feedback just for everyone else to know kind of what happened. Last week we had the Texas EU Summit, right? And we actually ran a panel during this time last week, and it was really great. It was really, 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 really well received. I mean, I still haven't gotten a response back to all the people who said, hey, Kevin, I want to talk to you about what's happening, both diplomats as well as other entrepreneurs that want to get involved in what happens. So, Celia, first and foremost, thank you for participating in that. The feedback I gave was a lot of times entrepreneurs are embarrassed in the practice sessions that we do, and most everything that we do together is going to be a practice session. It's just like in Aikido, right? When you step onto the mat with your partners and you're practicing, you do whatever you need to do to practice. You slow practice down so you can get the movement correct, things like that, so that you can actually get it deeper into your bones, so you can actually learn the movements that then do other things. Like In the case of the example, everything was perfect, and there's always a place that you can actually take things to the next level. You know, who knows exactly what that is, but there's always a place. I had suggested that one of the things that Celia's platform represents is whether or not one of our loved ones lives or dies. And so I say it this way. Sometimes you ask a question at the very beginning of a pitch, and you do a very short pitch. And a way of doing this, I sometimes say, you use sex or violence. Now, of course, call me a silly American for even suggesting this, but a good example, I'm going to try to just rip this off the top of my head, but if I was to say the words, do you want your loved one who's about to face surgery to have the very best care possible? Well, to have the very best care possible, you need the best insight. Around the heart alone, there are all these different types of doctors. We have a platform that allows your core doctor to plug into whoever he or she needs and get the right information from the world's top experts at the right time. Would you like to hear more? And boom, I'm not even practicing. I'm just like kind of throwing it out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've established.
I would totally agree with that, because, you know, one of the things I told Celia towards the end of the session that I want to dig into her a little bit more, and I know you probably did it through the lead canvas, was actual problem solution fit, right? And kind of different ways to think about that, and use that as part of your pitch, your first leading kind of like, and I just heard this as well, you know, in the concept of story branding and storytelling, right? Where you can literally start with the problem and have that be the leading, you know, attention grabber, right, for the consumer or the audience. Or if your solution is just so well, you know, defined, and it's also very well known already as a problem, you don't have to go readdress the problem, but you can just throw the solution out and it grabs people's attention, right? But in this case, because of healthcare, you know, I think the problem aspect is important, because you are solving a problem both on behalf of the patient and on the doctor, because the doctor also has so many choices of different types of specialists, and how does he know or she know which to go to? So that's what you're solving, right? And that's kind of what I think is a really strong message to start with, of, you know, kind of like how Kevin put it just now. That's great, because you're hitting also some emotional factors and, you know, things that drive decision making for the, you know, consumer.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the main thing about that is the reason I do that type of thinking about using the emotion is every decision's made on an emotional thing. We try to be rational beings, but the truth is that everything, and this is across all cultures, all around the world, at the end of the day, the decision's being made on the emotional. And it's now when those of y'all that are speaking in the American market as well, sometimes you have, I joke about this. I like to make fun of my own countrymen. Sometimes you use sex or violence to actually drive things in a very short period of time. I realize one of the other things that I want to have a session on at some point shortly in the future is the different types of pitch styles. And, you know, obviously we focus, since we're in the United States, we focus on the American style of pitching more than anything else. There's a German style of pitching, as an example, which is radically different than American style. In the German style, you establish your expertise, you go through the different processes, and hey, this is who I am, this is who I am, you know, this PhD and this PhD. By the way, Celia is a real doctor, right? She actually really knows this world. You know, I just happen to be some guy who has a bunch of family members who've been in the hospital, like 4 different family members in the hospital over the last couple of years. And I'm like, you know, here I am. I'm thinking about it from that standpoint. And so that the American style typically says, give me traction and show me that it really matters, right? Whereas the German style is take me seriously because I've got this in my background. At some point, sometime soon, and Jello, if you get a chance, Jello's my assistant, just you might write down that we ought to do that, because I've been thinking that we should contrast the German style from the American style from a couple of the other styles that are out there as well. the most distinct ones that have seen the biggest change, especially since we're working with a lot of entrepreneurs in Europe right now, is that. I'd like to have one of our other healthcare entrepreneurs, whether it's David or Kim or Emmanuel, weigh in and give feedback to Celia as well. Will one of the three of y'all weigh in on that? And David, you know that if no one else volunteers, I'm gonna voluntold you. So come on. Any feedback for Celia? Oh yeah, David, I'm putting you on the spot. Come off of mute. You can feedback, and then I want you to give your older pitches about it as well, because I think the two of y'all should be tying together a little bit more too, just based on your backgrounds.
We've talked before, me and Celia, and
Good.
I'm sorry it didn't come off mute because there's some background noise here. They're working on a neighbor's house. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the feedback that everyone has been telling Celia. You know, that in healthcare, there's that special connection that it's the decisions are always more, like you mentioned, more emotional. And I mean, there's a lot of examples talking about insurance. I mean, you always try here in Mexico, not everybody has insurance, at least private insurance. And there's always looking for insurance when they already need it. So that's just one example of how, you know, I always try to incline for that, you know, emotional leverage when you're pitching to your clients. So I mean, I agree with that, and I mean, we and Celia talked before, and I think that she has a very interesting product that when we talked about before about trying to implement that here in Mexico also.
Thank
Always
you.
with our hospitals. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're tied into how many hospitals now?
With 52 hospitals.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting thing too. One of the things that's interesting is being able to iterate really fast because of the relationships that y'all can bring to bear together on things. As well as, Celia, the other nice thing to be able to take advantage of, and this goes back to the request stuff that I was pushing on earlier, is you can do a lot more problem and solution interviews very quickly. It's not about sales. Sales is important, but on honing exactly what needs to be said and how to say it and how to enter in the conversation and to establish the process, you could do that really fast.
And if I may offer, I can help with that with potential clients here in Mexico. That I know there's a level of trust that we can, you know, explain that this is the context of the interview or the pitch, you know, for her to pitch and for you to pitch Celia and to give and to receive feedback from a potential client, and you know, we can work with that. I mean, I know you correct me if I'm wrong, but you already have you're working here in Mexico already, right?
No. I am here in Austin.
But you already have some business here in Mexico or not?
No.
Okay.
Funny you mentioned that though, David, because I talked to her about, you know, how to start, and I'm going to challenge her on, yes, let's look at the US market, but let's think about other markets too, and maybe even just continue thinking about Hungary, right? And verify why, right? But Mexico could be a great example, Celia, of where, you know, the barrier of entry may be a lot less, okay, and easier or cost effective, you know, if it makes sense, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
And Celia, you already have an interesting amount of traction back in Hungary, though. So talk about that just for a second, because it you know, this isn't just an idea that you've got in the back room. You actually have. Tell us a little bit more about the status of what's there.
Yep. Basically, Medical Scan we are there in the Hungarian market almost for 15 years. We do two things. That's why I was very interested in what Kim is saying. We do softwares, but we also deal with real world evidence data, which in the medicine is a very, very hot topic. I don't know whether you know, but a few words about it. Anytime a doctor and a patient interacts, a lot of data is formed, you know, from just a normal what is the blood pressure till a lot, and more this data is relevant to make clinical decisions And this is something the US and the European Union is looking very much at, and the medical community, how to leverage the knowledge of medical data. And this is what we do at Medical Scan. And as a doctor and an economist, with my team, we are able to, like Hercule Poirot in an Agatha Christie book, read the data and tell you what is happening with patients. And basically that inspired us to develop My Click Doctor, because what we see that many cases, doctors are not really up to date with the medical information that they should. So Medical Scan does real world evidence data, educate doctors, and connects them with the software. This is what we do.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean the thing about it is like it's a platform like yours that through our network, and getting expertise at the right time from doctors to other places, leveraging that platform that you've already worked out a lot of the process and the flows in Hungary. Just think about the number of countries that we could affect and the number of people that we can affect just by bringing things together. So yeah, that's exciting. Like I see nods from our Egyptian medical expert as well as our Mexican medical experts. So I think it's kind of exciting to see.
Yeah, no, I
Cool.
mean, I think there's lots of awesome applications that we talked about, that it's just the power of what a platform like this and the right kind of, access would create is just insane. It's really, that's why I love that, space, and kind of continue to try to push people to think about how they, engage and kind of recruit and act and react in the market, because it is evolving, but there's still so many markets that have like so much untapped potential and can be, definitely a great opportunity.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing about that, Celia, and thank you for
Thank
y'all's
you.
feedback, David and Omar and Kim. So we're coming to the end of the time that we have together, but I want to just see if there's any other real quick statements, needs, otherwise that someone wants to express before we say take them online to the Slack channels. If you're not in the Slack channels and you want to be, make sure that you send us an email to that email that I gave earlier. Or if you have my direct email, you can send that, and I'll hand it off to Jello to actually put you in the right place and all that sort of stuff. We're going to have a more formal process for inbounding, since we're really wanting to ramp that up now that we've made some final decisions about how we're managing our community and things like that. But anything before I wrap things up that anyone would raise your hand if you do, or something like that? David, you wanted to actually tell us about your venture, since you didn't really get to say very much. You just were getting to respond.
Yeah, sure. Real quick, we help healthcare providers to attract, serve, and retain patients, and we do this through our patient relationship platform. That right now we're currently working with 52 hospitals and nearly 2,000 doctors. We are currently working on a side project with them to create. I'm sorry, really sorry about the background noise. To create a virtual hospital command center, and this is something that we want to escalate outside of this group of hospitals for it to be a white branded command center that we can implement virtual hospitals for different hospital systems or insurance companies or whatever, to make a very transversal healthcare service accessible and affordable for patients. And I do have a very specific request.
Please.
If anyone has been working with or developing any type of solution for IVRs, we are precisely working for this, building this command center. We're trying to create the call center for patients to contact nurses and physicians. But if anybody has any experience, especially if it's something that I can do, it has to be for it to be not to code, because that's not my strong point. But if anybody has any solution or worked with it, I've tried box implant, but I don't know if it's working. And just very specific question for that.
Yeah, tell everyone what IVR stands for, just so they.
I remember correctly, the initial start for, I know that's voice, V and R are voice. Let me just Google it a quick second. I can't
So it's
remember.
essentially a call-in system is
Yeah,
what
it's a
he's
call
suggesting.
system. I think it's intelligent or something like that. Voice. I can remember what the initial start for. It's
No,
basically when
Put
you
it
no
in
call
hay
the
a call.
chat.
problema.
We have
Yeah.
it in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Interactive voice
Exact voice
response.
response. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, when you call a call center and they, you get the menu that for one contact this, and then they ask all this back end where you contact, depending on what you need, different departments or different information that you need for that. And we're trying to set up that with different requirements specific requirements that we need. So that's what we're looking for.
One of the other things you can do is, at the network level of the Tech Ranch Venture Outfitter, there is like a whole different set of we've assembled a lot of different vendors. One of the vendors that I'll just do a shout out for, that Jello can get you an invite, even if you might not use this for the long term, but it could work right now, is from Dialpad. Dialpad, the telephone system that Tech Ranch is using right now is Dialpad. And he's got Jello's got some. I don't remember what the offer is off the top of my head, but that might be an interesting place if you're wanting to. I would at least look at it to see if it will scale to the point that you need it to for what you're up to.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Yeah.
And if you do use it, make sure you tell us, because Jello's always pushing me. It's like, hey, we're supposed to get this vendor a feedback about things, and I'm like, hey, I'm busy talking to entrepreneurs. So, but I know that's one of the vendors that's made an offer to the Tech Ranch network that we have. We're going to make sure that those offers, by the way, are easier to reach. We're in the process of working on a different way of managing all that sort of stuff, and it's taken a lot longer to get it out the door, so we'll do it by hand right now. If there's anyone that wants, needs those offers, just let us know. Cool. Well, I tell you what, I think because I like to try to keep us to an hour, what we'll do is we'll start to wrap things up today, and just say, a reminder to everyone, if you're an entrepreneur, you're welcome to be in the Tech Ranch community. We do have other levels after that, but I want to start really presencing, if we're going to go into a bear market, if we're going to have some rough times like we did in 2008, 2009, one of the most important things to be focusing on, again, is social capital. Financial capital might become scarce. Social capital is always something we can do. We just had a really good example during today's call about just having people say, hey, here's a little bit of insight, or here's someone that you could call, or maybe even there are one of the things that's like one of the highest examples of amazing things that happen just really quickly is there's a couple of different people that might become a couple different companies that might become go-to-market partners together. Right, that is exciting. That's real exciting, because that's what we're here for, and all it did was, it didn't cost us anything other than just a little bit of time with each other. Make sure that you go back to the like I said on my previous slide, if you're not in the Slack channels, especially the request channel, the request channel is the channel that we should start building these requests. At some point, I'll go ahead and put some of the ground rules about that. But I think for the group that's in it now, y'all already get a kind of a sense. It's not there to advertise. Please don't advertise stuff. And if you see problems, there's still really simple ground rules. And I'll talk about the history, because I used to do this with just a Yahoo group, and we had 800 people on the Yahoo group. And it was amazing that we could have the 800 people on an email list do this in a really powerful way. The two rules are: don't advertise, but when you need something, make a request. The second one is, if there's a problem with the community or a problem with someone else, take the complaint directly to the person who can address it. That is, even if it's a way things about the way things are set up, just tell me directly. Let's not distract the community with that type of information, because the community wants to pay attention to this. I call this concept in a book that I wrote, but I haven't published yet. I call it an attention commons, we have this commons that we're building together that we can powerfully do social capital back and forth on. But we don't want to destroy the commons, destroy the thing we're doing. And what is the commons in this case? It's the intention of hundreds of people that are more than happy to work with you to help you solve problems together, but that need to they just want to make sure that you actually have that you're making a request. Don't spam people there. Okay, enough about that. If you're not in our group, if you would like to sign up as a country manager for a specific country, if you'd like to sign up as a mentor and to mentor startups that are in this process, if you want to get on our newsletter right here as well, at some point we'll have a form that allows the people to onboard through this to the community. We don't have that yet on this URL, but we will shortly. So take advantage of this. And main thing is, as we go to the next steps, especially as we look at the market and what the market's telling us about what's happening in the world and stuff like that, we have the continuing concern of the war that's going on in Ukraine. Let's just make sure that we really dig in together and start really presencing community with each other. It's through our community of working with each other that we can actually take on the challenges that we're taking on. As an example, all of y'all are entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values, and for building a better world, not just building a business that's producing cash. Because of that, let's really work together. And it's my honor to be here with y'all today. Let's go change the world for the better together. Thank you all for everything. Thank you, Jello, for sticking through it while you have a fever and roughing it out. Go get some sleep right after this, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Oh, Patricia, thank you for joining us from El Salvador. It's great to see you on. At some point in the future, I want to make sure I get a chance to put you on the spot and actually have you tell us more about your venture live as well. So, everyone, y'all take care, and let's go change the world for the better together. Ciao for now.